Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Ask Charity Navigator's CEO Anything. My name is Sandra Minuti and I'll be your host today. I manage Charity Navigator's marketing and communications, and I've been with the organization since 2002, serving in a variety of roles over the years. I'm really excited to be part of this session today. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, Michael Thatcher. Michael joined Charity Navigator this past August as our new president and CEO. He provides direction and leadership towards the achievement of our mission while managing all business affairs. Prior to joining Charity Navigator, Michael spent more than 15 years with Microsoft. Most recently, he was their Public Sector Chief Technology Officer, responsible for technology policy initiatives with government and academic leaders in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Michael's experiences also include technically supporting oceanographic research for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, co-founding and directing an international performing arts organization, as well as serving on the board of directors for several nonprofits. Also joining us today is Mariah Ross. Mariah is an associate program analyst and also joined our staff just this past summer. She's responsible for data collection, research, analysis, and evaluation of many of the charities we rate. She also helps me with some of our marketing and communication initiatives. Mariah will not be formally presenting today, but she'll be helping to answer your questions a bit later in the webinar. So without further ado, welcome to today's session, Ask Charity Navigator CEO Anything, presented by Michael Thatcher. Let's get started by filling everybody in. Michael, why did we choose this topic for today's webinar?
Thank you, Sandy. Well, actually, we want to understand you better. And as I'm new, and being new, I've had a lot of questions myself. And one of these questions was, are we providing you the best possible service and experience with what we do? I'm hoping through this interaction to understand this question better and to be able to move and improve what we do based on your questions and most specifically based on your feedback. I want to start with a big thank you. Thank you for your interest in Charity Navigator and for being intentional in your giving. We are grateful that you value our services and that you use us and talk about us and share the value of what we do with your friends and family, that you allow us to help you in your giving process. And we're really grateful that you support us financially. Charity Navigator works to guide intelligent giving. And by guiding intelligent giving, we aim to advance a more effective and efficient philanthropic marketplace in which donors and the charities that they support work in tandem to overcome the world's most persistent challenges.
Thank you. The last year of 2015 was an incredible and a huge year for Charity Navigator. It was also a big year for me. It's when I came into this role. But at Charity Navigator, we've increased the size of the organization by over 36%. We've continued to rate, and in a timely manner, over 8,000 charities. We did results reporting work where we collected data for over 3,000 charities. In October of this year, we launched a new feature to the website, which is our Giving Basket. It's a safe, easy, and convenient way to support any charity from our website. We've also added more functionality to the My Charities feature of the website and included personalized alerts and ratings for the charities that you follow. We had more than a 21% increase in the visits to our website this last year for a record number of over 9 million visits in 2015. One of the highlights of the year was that donations grew. They grew by over 40%, and we now have over 40,000 donors. And because of this, we were able to do away with the banner ads that you may have noticed over the last few years. Well, they're gone now. And that's right, as of January 1st, we removed the ads from our site. And we hope that you're going to enjoy a cleaner, neater, and faster experience when you use Charity Navigator. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of what we're doing with the rating system and the website. some of the key things that we're going to be working on going into this year. One area where we've had consistent feedback is around search and a desire for us to improve search. And that is one of the first and foremost items that we're going to be working on in terms of the actual web experience. We have an ongoing work on revision to the existing metrics on financial metrics. And this is something that began a couple of years ago, and we will be releasing an interim release of the financial metrics in the spring of this year. And we're restarting and re-engaging in the results reporting work that we started also several years ago with a new vigor and a new approach. We believe that there are three things that donors should check when they're validating and vetting a charity. That's the financial health of the organization, it's the accountability and the transparency, and then it's actually the impact or the results that the charity itself is reporting. So as going into this evolution and progressing forward, we want to get your input. And in part of this, through this call and more broadly, we've been polling our users. And you may have noticed that we sent out a user survey in the fall of this year and going into December. I want to take a pause here to just apologize and say that you're going to have to forgive us here, but we're wanting to get more input from you. And so in this phase of our evolution, we're going to be asking you questions a little bit more frequently. We're going to be using surveys as a means of doing that. We hope to do that in a very unobtrusive way with targeted, fine-pointed surveys. And we're going to do that going forward. We've just done that in some of the work around the changes to the financial metrics, and we're going to keep doing that with all of you so that we have a valid set of information from you. I want to talk a little bit about the survey that we ran in the fall going into the beginning of January. And in this survey, we polled all of our registered users. Over 2,000 people actually completed this survey. And 86% of the respondents said that they use Charity Navigator to check ratings. Probably not surprising. But what we were also interested to find was that many of you do more than just check the ratings, and that you're actually doing a lot of research on the charities on the site. There were a couple of things that I noticed that were surprising, and we actually believed we were getting better traction with, and this is something that we're going to look to improve going forward. A couple of the areas of the website were not that well known to those that completed the survey, namely the hot topics section, where we run advisories and list charities that can help you donate to causes, say, when there's an issue running, whether there's an environmental crisis or a crisis, a humanitarian crisis, as in the Nepal earthquake this last year. Another area that donors weren't necessarily aware of was the donor advisories, where we actually list issues that people should be aware of concerning charities. Another tool that we see as valuable, which can help you in your research, is the sector analysis tool. Another tool we'd like to get more visibility to is the My Charities page, which allows you to track and maintain a list of charities that you care about and actually donate to through our giving basket. The giving basket, which is new, was also something that people didn't really have that much awareness of. So these are areas that we're looking to raise visibility. Before I go into the specific questions that were submitted for this webinar, I wanted to call out a couple of things that we make available on the website and some articles that are written by our experts designed to help you do more with your giving and give more in a informed and researched way. From how to donate your card, how to give time and give your time in a time of crisis, we've got this covered. And you can find most of this information under our tips for donors on the tab at the top of our website. We frequently share tips related to news items on our blog, our Twitter account, and our Facebook account, so look there as well. I'm going to touch on a few of the important tips for donors before we dive into your questions. When you get the call at home, you're having dinner, I want to call out if it's really important not necessarily to take that call. And please hang up the phone. You do not want to be doing your giving in a knee-jerk fashion and reaction every time you're asked online or in email or on the phone when they call you when you're having dinner at night. Unfortunately, the majority of the time when you receive these calls, they're coming from a nonprofit fundraising firm hired by a charity, and many times that charity is keeping the majority of your donation. There are cases where up to 85% of the donation that you make goes to the fundraising firm and not to the charity. We've seen cases where the charity lost money on the deal, and the firm kept all the donations as their fee. Many of you have said and sent in questions in advance to this webinar that one of your frustrations are the number of mailings, either paper mailings or e-mailings that you get from a wide variety of different charities, and some charities that you've never even given to. Why does this happen? Basically, there's no law today that prevents a charity from sending, selling, or trading their donors' contact information. In fact, many of them do this as a way to generate additional income. So before you give, check to see if the charity has a donor privacy policy where they promise never to share, trade, or sell their donors' personal information. Just as a side note, Charity Navigator has such a policy, and we won't share your information. You can check the charity's website for this information, or if the charity is rated, then you can check on our ratings and look under the accountability and transparency metrics to see how this is handled in their A&T metrics. Also, be careful. Some organizations have an opt-out policy. That means you have to tell the charity that you don't want their information shared or sold. You can do this through writing, via phone, or by clicking on a button while making your online donation. I would be proactive here. If you're supporting an organization and they're giving away your name, or they're sending you too much email or sending you too much paper mail, call them up. Let them know that you're very unhappy with this and see what happens. In general, they will try and make a good effort to stop that. If they don't, then maybe you should consider finding another charity that's focusing on the cause that you care about. One of the features that we've added to the website over the last couple of months, actually this was released in October, is the giving basket. And this relates slightly to the last point about giving anonymously. But you can give anonymously through our giving basket. And if you want to do that as a means of limiting the mailings that you receive, I highly suggest you look at the giving basket and click on the anonymous feature so that when your donation is made, it is done anonymously. This will stop new mailings. It may not stop existing mailings, but at least it's a preventative step in the right direction. So with that, I'd like to turn things back over to Sandy, and we will begin the Q&A. Let's get into your specific questions. Or actually, Mariah, why don't you ask me the questions and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So first off, I just wanted to thank everybody who submitted questions in advance of this webinar. We got a lot of great questions. Second, if you didn't get a chance to send in your question ahead of time, or if you have additional questions, then please submit your question now by typing it into the question pane. That said, we may not get to every question with the time remaining. If we don't get to your question, then please know we will make every effort to follow up with you after this webinar, provided we have your contact information. And you're always welcome to call or email our office directly. We will share our contact information at the very end of this webinar. So let's get started with your questions. So Michael, the first question we have is how can I search for charities that meet specific criteria?
Thank you, Mariah. We've received a variety of questions about search. And on the simplest end of the spectrum, when you log on to Charity Navigator or when you just open the website, you can type in the name of a charity or a topic such as military or Syria into the search box found at the top of the site. Then on the search results page, you can see and use the filter tools on the left-hand side to refine your results. Alternatively, you can use our advanced search to create a more elaborate search up front, including criteria such as the size of the charity, rating, scope of work, and mission. You still have the option to further filter your results on the search results page. One thing I think you should keep in mind is that when you search, our results are broken into two different tabs. On the left, you'll see rated charities. On the right, you'll find unrated charities. So if the charity you're looking for doesn't appear in the rated charities, take a look at the unrated organizations tab to see if it's listed there.
Thanks. So our next question is, does Charity Navigator offer a feature similar to Amazon's listing of similar products?
Yes, it does. At the bottom of every rated charities page, you'll find a listing of charities performing similar types of work. These are broken down into those that are highly rated and those that are most viewed.
Thank you. So our next question reads, I question the salaries of some charities leaders. How can I determine which level of compensation is okay and which is too much?
That's a question we get quite often. First, let me say that we don't rate this metric because it's highly subjective. However, for every rated charity, we do post the CEO's compensation so that you can take into account when reviewing the charity. As for our data, it shows that among the charities we've evaluated, those being mid to large-sized charities, the typical CEO's annual compensation is in the low to mid six figures. And on the level of compensation will vary based on the location of the charity, its mission, and its size. Before you make any judgments about salaries, we highly encourage you to keep in mind that the charities we rate are complex organizations with multi-million-dollar budgets, hundreds of employees, and thousands of constituents. It is important to consider that it takes a certain level of skill and professionalism to effectively run a charity, and charities must offer competitive salaries if they want to attract and retain top-level leadership. We believe that you are better off investing in a high-performing charity that pays its CEO somewhat above the median figure for similar charities than supporting an underperforming charity whose CEO doesn't take a salary or takes a minimal salary. For additional information, please take a look at our Charity Navigator's CEO compensation study, and you'll find a link to that report in the blue field at the bottom of the site.
So our next question is, how do you rate charities? And if you'd like, I can take that one.
Mariah, I'd love it if you take that
Sure.
question.
So broadly speaking, we examine the financial health and the accountability and transparency of each charity by examining 17 different metrics and then rolling that up into a 0 to 4-star rating. In practicality, that means our team of analysts, self-included, are looking at 990s and charity websites all day in order to collect the necessary data to rate each charity. We've built in a system that doesn't require the charities to participate, meaning that they can't opt in, and more importantly, they can't opt out of being rated. However, if they're willing to work with us, then we can often provide a richer rating. If you want to know more about the nuts and bolts of how we rate charities, then just visit the methodology portion of our site. You'll see that section listed at the top of our website. So the next question is, how many charities do we rate?
Today, well, actually, let me start from the beginning. When we first started back in 2002, we were rating about 1,100 charities. Today, we're rating over 8,000. And these charities account for half of all the donations if you exclude houses of worship.
So our next question is, how often does a charity get rated? And I guess I'll go ahead and take that one too. So each charity's rating is updated annually, and we publish updated ratings on the first of each month. For any given charity, the update occurs when it submits a new Form 990 to the IRS, and we receive a copy. It's important to note that the new 990s often come out many months and sometimes even more than a year after a charity's fiscal year has ended. That's because charities have 4.5 months after their fiscal year ends to file their Form 990, and from there they can get multiple filing extensions. That's why you'll see ratings on our site based on data that could be a year or even more old. So it's important, so it's because the charity took that long to file, not that it took our analysts that long to get around to the rating. So the next question we have is, do the charities pay to be rated?
So as I mentioned during the webinar, Charity Navigator is very much user supported. And one of the red lines we won't cross is that we don't take money from charities that we rate, and we don't charge them to be rated, and we don't charge them to use our logo. As such, you can be sure that our ratings are objective and are not in any way tainted by taking money on that regard. I want to call out, there was a live question that just came in, and I want to answer that as I answer this question. And the question was, does Charity Navigator get a percentage or otherwise benefit from the donations made through the giving basket? The reality is we do not charge for this. There is a fee taken by Network for Good, and I'll actually talk to this specifically a little bit later on. But Charity Navigator is not taking any money for the use of the giving basket. We do have information about the giving that is collected, but not anything that we're using in any way to gain monetary value. Mariah, I'm going to ask you a question now.
Sure.
How can a donor interpret the Form 990 from the IRS?
So that's a good question. Given that some of these documents can be as big as a phone book and certainly more complex, I could offer a whole webinar on just this topic. That said, under the Tips for Donors section of our website, you'll find a page called Evaluating Charities Not Currently Rated by Charity Navigator. At a high level, that document walks you through the important items to look at on the 990 when determining if you should support a particular charity. So Michael, another question for you. Is it better to give monthly, which would be automatic, or just give once a year and ask not to be bothered by numerous emails or letters?
Well, if I look at this from a charity's perspective and from a cash flow management point of view, getting a monthly donation and having my donors provide a recurring payment is actually, it's easier for us to manage as a charity. And monthly gifts can still add up to an annual amount. But at the end of the day, it's your money. And so how you choose to give that money is up to you. The charities will appreciate the recurring payments, but it is ultimately your choice.
So I have a live question here. How can I stop charities from sending me so many follow-up requests for support by the mail?
This is a frequent question, and we can certainly sympathize with your frustrations and have long advocated that charities refrain from sending numerous solicitations. While many charities do honor their donors' requests, as you have experienced, not every charity has taken that message to heart. The things you can do include tell the charity your wishes and let them know that if they don't honor your wishes, that you will stop donating. We see these communications all the time, and some donors even have a special insert that they include when they mail in their donations. If a charity fails to honor your request, then share your experience by posting a comment on the charity's page or their Facebook page on their website. This way you can forewarn other donors, and you might even get the charity to take notice, respond, and amend their ways. Another option is to give anonymously and not share more than your email address with the charity. You don't need to give them your physical address. One of the ways of doing that is through our giving basket.
All right, thanks. So we've got a bunch of questions about the giving basket. So our users want to know what the new giving basket is all about. Why did we get rid of the prior donation system, and did the fees change?
Historically, and for those of you that have worked with Charity Navigator over the years, you know that you were able to donate through the Charity Navigator site, and then you would do that by actually leaving our website and going to Network for Good, where then you would actually provide your donation and your information to Network for Good. We've integrated that now into our website. And for that service, before and also today with our giving basket, Network for Good charges a 4.75% fee of the transaction. You'll also notice that that fee can be either added to the total of the donation or a part of the donation. So the charity can get the entire, let's say you want to give $100, you can add the 4.475 to that amount, or it can be included in your $100 donation. This past October, we launched our own giving basket. It's also powered by Network for Good, and it's also including that 4.75% filing fee. And like before, you can also deduct the amount from your total donation. One of the reasons we moved to the giving basket and actually implementing that directly within our website is that we believe that it makes for an easier experience for the donors, and that it also allows you to donate to multiple charities at once and then check out at one time, both rated and unrated charities. You can set up recurring donations here, and you don't have to log into a separate account at Network for Good. You can do it directly through your Charity Navigator account. The other aspect here is that your giving records are maintained and in one place with Charity Navigator, so that when you do your tax filings at the beginning of the next year, you actually have that all in one place and you know where the money is.
So why shouldn't our users give directly to a charity and bypass the fees charged by the giving basket?
That's a personal choice. What we're providing with the Giving Basket is a online contribution vehicle, which is really one of the best and cheapest ways for nonprofits to receive donations. And there's the additional services that I mentioned before. Ultimately, Network for Good is being 100% transparent about their fees and how they're being used. We believe that it's a good service, but you're always at choice. And if you want to give directly to a charity, so as to bypass the Giving Basket and the fees associated with it, by all means you should do so. Mariah, I'm going to turn it around and ask you a question.
Sure.
Last week I donated to a bunch of charities using Charity Navigator's Giving Basket. When does the money pass to the individual charity?
Good question. So Network for Good distributes funds to charities on a monthly basis. They disperse on the 15th of the month, following the month in which a contribution was made. Keep in mind that while you will receive an immediate receipt from Network for Good acknowledging your gift for tax purposes, you may or may not receive a thank you from the charity, even if you didn't give anonymously. That's because the charities get all the prior month donations in a lump sum. They need to log into the Network for Good portal to access the details of your gift. And some, but not all charities will do that.
I'm going to take a live question from the webinar portal. And it reads, is Charity Navigator's goal to rate all charities in the United States? Our goal today is to rate as many charities as we can in a meaningful way and in a way that's actually representative of where the majority of the money is going. One of the things we're looking at is how do we expand the number of charities that we rate, and how do we do so in a way that retains the quality bar that we have set today. And part of that is, one of the limitations that we have is that the amount of information that's required for us to do a rating is generally only available by larger organizations. And so looking at ways to actually continue that and at the same time expand the number of charities that we rate is one of the challenges that we're looking at as we go into the next year or two.
So our next question reads, I sometimes write on a charity request too poor of a rating on Charity Navigator, and I send it back without a donation. Do you think this is effective or not?
We know the charities take notice and that the messaging and work and improve their rating. But in the case that you are truly passionate about a charity's programs and their services, then you may want to consider giving them a call and find out more about the areas in which our rating shows them as underperforming. Be curious. Get involved. You may learn that they have a plan to improve and that your gift will actually help them. It's good to have that relationship if you can. This is probably more likely a case when you have a charity with a 2-star rating that is sort of on the cusp, and may be less likely with a charity that is a 0 or a 1-star rating. But by all means, be curious and investigate.
So what questions should donors ask a charity before committing to support them?
I would ask them details about their mission and what proof they have that they can actually show results that they're accomplishing that mission. How are they making a difference, and what are their outcomes? Also, ask them about their future work and their goals and how they intend to report on these accomplishments once they've actually achieved them. Mariah, let me ask you a question.
Sounds good.
How do I find charities that support the troops or the veterans?
So on our site, there's currently 2 ways to do that. First, you can do a keyword search in our search bar on terms like military, veterans, or troops. Second, you can check out our hot topic on supporting the troops. This curated list includes the good, bad, and ugly charities that help the military, their families, and veterans, so that you can find a good one to support and avoid the bad apples. And you can find that item under the hot topic tab at the top of our website. So, Michael, do you get pressure back from charities with low ratings? Does it ever lead to changing the way you rate charities?
Yes and no. if a charity has a poor rating and it's for a valid reason, that won't necessarily, they're actually giving us feedback on it or coming back to us will not necessarily change the rating. That said, we've been in the business of evaluating charities now for almost 15 years, and we've received a lot of feedback over that time. And charities that do not score well in our system are clearly disappointed, and some of the users are more vocal about their disappointment. The feedback collectively over time can result in changes to their own ratings as well as to, more broadly, to changes to our rating methodology. On the charity-specific level, their feedback might result in us adjusting their accountability or transparency metrics, changing the base year from which we calculated their growth metrics, removing them from a watch list or a donor advisory, or even result in us agreeing that they are not a good candidate for our rating system, in which case we would stop rating them. There are some charities that don't fit the rating model. On a broader level, the feedback we get from charities is shaping the changes we plan to make on our financial metrics, as well as how we move forward with rating their results reporting. And feedback from charities on our watch lists or our donor advisory lists has definitely shaped our policies and procedures for that methodology. Let me give you an example. We changed from notifying charities after we had published their name on our watch list or donor advisory to notifying them several business days before we would post them to the website. This allowed them the opportunity to submit additional information pertinent to the watch list and the donor advisory concerns that we had flagged for them. This is something that they've been able to take action on. On the flip side, believe it or not, we really have had some charities thank us for publicly pointing out the areas where we are underperforming. These staffers have told us that until we made their shortcomings so publicly visible, they were unable to get consensus among the rest of their staff or their board of directors to address the problems directly.
Okay, so we do have a live question. This user asked, first, what criteria do you use to decide what charities to rate? And then second, they asked, can I suggest a charity to be rated? So the criteria we use is kind of in-depth, but at a surface level, we're looking to see that an organization is in fact a 501c3 organization. We're looking to see where their revenue is coming from. We want majority of their revenue to be from public support, excuse me. We also look at their length of operation. So we require 7 years of Form 990s, and that's just because we need that much financial data to calculate a rating. We also look at their spending practices and the types of programs that they're offering. As far as you suggesting a charity to be rated, you can absolutely do so. And when an unrated charity becomes potentially eligible to be rated, a vote button will appear on their profile page. So encourage your constituents, you as a donor, obviously, your friends, your family, to go ahead and vote if you want to see a charity being rated. And that's just a way for us to, prioritize which unrated charities we're adding to our website and when. So another question for you, Michael. Do you think it's more effective to give money to one charity versus to give that money to several of a similar type of charities, for example, with cancer charities?
I think when it comes to financial investments, we've often seen that diversification is the key to reducing risk. But in many cases, some of the data within the charitable sector and in philanthropic investments would almost be the opposite. And if you're really taking the time to identify a well-run charity that is engaged in a cause area that you are passionate about, we've found that by concentrating your giving and doing so with a well-run organization with good outcomes, you should feel confident in doing that. And so spreading your money among multiple organizations may actually diminish the possibility of any one of those groups actually having a larger impact in what they're trying to do and bringing substantive change, as each charity is spending part of your gift on processing expenses for that gift. So depending on the size of your donations, if you spread yourself too thin, there's a limited amount of impact. And we see concentration actually is more beneficial.
Thanks. So we have a couple of live questions. The first is, in the giving basket, can I make a donation in honor of someone, and will they be notified? And the answer to that is yes. You can absolutely do that via the giving basket. And if you submit their email address, they will be notified. Michael, we have a live question for you. Can you talk about how you address results and the areas where you'll be expanding your work in this area?
So the results reporting work is something that we're looking at engaging in by working with associations of different cause areas in the charitable sector and gathering information on results reporting that is already in existence, leveraging the work that we did in the past, and as a combined effort, let's say if I want to report results on museums, or I want to report results on animal shelters or food banks, there's a whole different set of results for each of those types or cause areas, if you would. And it's our belief that the cause area, the members of that particular area or cause sector or associations of organizations will be best suited to actually agree upon what metrics to report on. And then we will gather and work with them on actually agreeing on what outcomes to be reported, and then being a custodian of that information and begin to work on results reporting.
Okay, thanks. So is there a plan for Charity Navigator to alert users about controversial or opposing viewpoints about a charity?
We currently have two mechanisms for sharing information about a charity, and that's probably what I'm sorry, I lost my, we have two ways of doing this, and one is the donor advisory, and the other is the watch list, where we actually raise information about charities that we think you should know about. The other area where there's information about charities that you might have concerns on would be on their actual comment area in the charity's profile.
Great. So we do have a live question. It reads, I'll be retiring this year and will have to severely cut back on the charitable contributions I've been making. I've been donating to about 10 charities monthly and a bunch more once a year. Do you think when I retire that it's better from the charity's perspective for me to contribute $5 or maybe even less monthly, or a lump sum once a year? Or should I just ask them directly?
I think on some levels this is similar to the question we had before, but what we've seen is that charities in general prefer having a regular recurring income that they can count on through a monthly remittance than the lump sum payments. And if it's easy enough for you to do it in that way, I would highly suggest you to consider the recurring payments, even if they're small amounts, versus the lump sum. But again, it's ultimately your choice.
Okay, so another live question. Viewing the nonprofit landscape, what causes do you think are being underserved right now?
I don't actually have an answer to that question. Mariah, do you have an answer to that question? What would you say from your perspective?
You know, I don't know that I have the expertise to say that one stands out as being underserved, but I will say based on our user feedback, at least our constituents are very broad with the causes that they're donating to, and they're passionate about a lot of different things. So from what I can tell, a lot of good work is being done in a lot of really good areas.
I think one of the things that I've noticed in, let's say, a trend in giving, which may not actually address the question of underserved areas, but it is that there's an increased demand among the donors and individuals, corporations, and foundations for more data on the impact of charities and that the charities have in the world. And as I was discussing before, we're working on expanding our rating system to include results reporting. And so organizations that are able to articulate this will actually gain greater visibility and eliminate the risks of being unseen.
Yeah, and I will add that there's many causes that do need support. Those that traditionally get the most support are education, houses of worship, and then health charities. Other causes historically do get less money, so that's something you may want to consider when you're choosing which causes to invest your donations. And so I do have another question. I have received some requests from charities stating that my contributions will be far more helpful to them if I can commit. We kind of answered this one. This one's about donating monthly, so we kind of answered that one. The next question is, I made a donation to a charity that is actively trying to change government policies, and I came to find out my gift wasn't tax deductible. What's going on here?
First, let me say that we know the nonprofit tax code can be confusing. You are not the first person to ask for this clarification, and honestly, some entities do qualify for tax deductible donation or for tax deductions, and some don't. So if you take a step back, there are many types of nonprofits. The IRS assigns a nonprofit its designation when an entity applies for this status. And the biggest classification of nonprofit is what we call a 501c3 organization. These are known as public charities, and donations to them are tax exempt. These are the only types of nonprofits that we rate at Charity Navigator. A 501c3 public charity offers donations a potential tax deduction, but they can't lobby. So if you're donating to a lobbying organization, and lobbying is part of their mission, then they'll often exist under what's called a 501c4 status, or as a 501c4 organization. And generally, deductions are not, tax deductions are not available when you give to a politically minded organization. So again, we don't rate 501c4 organizations, and maybe to give you a couple examples of that, two well-known examples would be the NRA, or the National Rifle Association of America, the Greenpeace Fund, or Greenpeace Incorporated. These are lobbying organizations, and your donations won't be tax deductible.
Okay, so another question is, I have found your site to be extremely valuable in learning about the financial efficiency and even more relevant about the transparency of candidate charities. This has grown in importance as I keep getting more and more solicitations, so I need a way to prioritize them. But more relevant and more daunting is to evaluate the efficacy of an organization. Even if a charity spends 100% of its donations on its nice-sounding programs, it may not be getting impactful results. Do you guys have any objective way to assess this?
At Charity Navigator, we're aiming to advance a more efficient and responsive philanthropic marketplace, in which donors and the charities they support work in tandem to overcome our most persistent challenges. We're proud to supply users with confidence in those charities they choose, and to support by offering ratings that assess the financial health, accountability, and transparency of those charities. But as you've indicated, many donors want more information. Specifically, they seek data regarding a charity's programmatic impact. The charities themselves even tell us they wish a third party existed to provide this information to their donors. It is our goal to expand the rating system to include an assessment of a charity's effectiveness. However, developing a universal, unbiased, objective rating system that evaluates impact without inflicting burdensome reporting requirements on the charities, it's challenging. And as I mentioned before, we're looking at working with associations of like cause areas in the charitable sector to actually achieve this. No one's really been able to do this so far, neither in academia nor in the charity regulators or the charities themselves. And we're working on this plan right now, and this is in our programmatic effort of what we're calling results reporting, or you may have seen the code name Charity Navigator 3.0. So while we can't offer you the solution today, we hope to be able to do so in the not too distant future. The one thing that I would suggest in the absence of a mechanism to do this from an independent evaluator is that get involved with the charities and ask them directly. How do they report their impact? See if it's available on their website. Send them an email, call them up, and ask them about their programs and the results that they get from those programs. and try and differentiate in your inquiries with them between outputs and outcomes. And so knowing the difference and being able to, having them be able to articulate that to you, I think will be very useful.
Great. So we do have another question. This user is asking, where do the donations go and which causes are most popular, national versus international?
As far as which causes are the most popular and other information on the distribution of giving, I would encourage you to read, we have a report on our website which is called Giving Statistics, and it's located in the Tips for Donors. There's a report that gets published, we publish annually in June of the year, and currently you'll find data on giving statistics for the year 2014. But to sum it up, historically speaking, houses of worship get the most donations, followed by educational charities such as the university you might have attended, and then health-related charities. Most donations go to charities whose scope of work is national rather than international. That said, there's been a slight change here with increased money going international or to, let's say, U.S. charities that have an international focus with regard to some of the overseas disasters that have occurred in the last couple of years. And so there is a slight increase in the money going out of the country towards disaster relief. Mariah, let me ask you a question
Sure.
now. Why don't we rate the Salvation Army?
So the Salvation Army is exempt under Internal Revenue Code from filing the Form 990 as a church or convention or association of churches. As a result, we lack sufficient data to evaluate their financial health. We know many donors are interested in this organization, and we've asked the Salvation Army to submit their financial data to us for review. And they've elected to decline, as they are allowed to do under federal law. I have a live question. It reads, Charity Navigator has been a leader in data-driven decision-making for a long time. From your unique vantage point, how do you see the use of data evolving across the broader nonprofit space going forward?
I'm going to ask you to repeat the last part of that question again.
Sure. From your unique vantage point, how do you see the use of data evolving across the broader nonprofit space going forward?
I think more and more charities are becoming more data enabled, and I would also say that the donors are becoming more data enabled. And I mean, big data is quite a bit of a cliche right now within everything that we do, but actually making intelligent decisions based on the information that we glean from the data and the tool sets that are available to us today to actually have information to be smart in what we do or to change our behaviors. So for example, one of the things that we're implementing at Charity Navigator is data analytics so that we can actually understand what elements of our service, which is ratings and the providing of those ratings to all of you, how do we improve that experience, and how do we use the data that we get back to tell us what you really care about? Now, what's interesting about data is that it has some limits. There's always going to be a need for human interaction and human verification, but there's a lot of passively collected information that allows you to see trends and behaviors, and this helps charities in all regard because they can adapt their services and programs to be more responsive, to be more targeted, and actually have greater efficiency and effectiveness in the long run. So I think data is something that today we're talking a lot about it because it's still somewhat new, but pretty soon it's just going to be an integral part of all of what we do, and it'll be a fairly seamless experience for all of us.
So another question, there's actually been quite a few questions about the Wounded Warrior Project, asking what the facts are for the Wounded Warrior Project. And I'd say all of us here would say this is pretty much the most consistently viewed charity on our site. So you can find their 3-star rating on our website with all the details that go into that rating. And if you had any questions on that, feel free to reach out to us to discuss that further. We do have one more live question. I look primarily at program expense when evaluating a charity. Is that fair?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
I look primarily at the program expenses when evaluating a charity. Is that fair?
Program expenses is an important aspect to see how much money is actually going towards the mission of a charity. But it's not everything that's required in order to run a successful organization. The importance of program expense, clearly we want to see that most of our effort and dollars are going towards that. But you need to validate the overhead that the organization has within reason. Any other questions?
I don't have any more questions on my end. That's it for now.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Make a last call for any final questions that you may have. And here's our variety of different contacts, our website, which you clearly know, our Twitter handle, Facebook account, my own, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's mthatcher, and we have our Charity Navigator blog. You have a general question you'd like to send to us, send it to info@charitynavigator.org. If you have a direct question to me, send it to mthatcher@charitynavigator.org. And once again, thank you all very much for joining us, and look forward to working with you going into the future. Thank you.